Hey folks, my name is Cara Curley. You may know me from mostly the Reaper community, sometimes the Moonlight Mini community. I troll around Ve Victus, but today I'm going to talk about some of the things I've been doing for Felicia Day's Things project. Notably, I am painting Fawkes right now, and I've actually got two Fawkes. Part of the reason I'm making this video is because Christine Van Patten with Moonlight Minis asked me to record how I do these glass orbs and have kind of the light coming through. So as you might notice, this Fawkes does not have the orb. This Fawkes does. And I'm going to be replicating that on the duplicate Fawkes. So what you might notice is there is a gradient going from darkest at the top to brightest at the bottom. And with a point light, or actually I don't know if that's the correct terminology, but there's a highlight right here at the top where the light hits directly. And what's happening is light is actually going through the glass and coming out the bottom. So we're going to be working on a gradient like that. Another reference for this kind of effect is if you've seen anime eyes, they'll be darker up top, and as light comes through the iris, you'll have a brighter highlight towards the bottom. So I base coat everything in burgundy wine, as some of you might know. So I have this kind of dark purple brown already on there, which will kind of act as my shadow color. And I've got a range of paints I'm going to be working with today. Pure white being the brightest, red neon glow being second, holly berry, which is actually a seasonal color. There are other reds you can use. Feel free to ping me. Violet red. I might use a little bit of clotted red and red brick if I need additional shadows. And for my very darkest, I'm going to be using Nightshade Purple. Sorry about that. I live next to a busy road, and occasionally there are sirens. So all of these are Reaper colors. I love Reaper. It goes on real smooth, and it's pretty great for the price. And so from my burgundy wine, I'm actually going to jump to the violet red, which is a pretty good mid-tone. I actually start from going from dark to light, and red is a fairly transparent color, so it's going to blend into the burgundy wine pretty early on. And I'm just going to glaze up a little bit. So I'm thinning out my paint and just very lightly applying a little layer of violet red on top, kind of scooting the paint out, pulling it so it's blended. And again, it's okay if it's a little transparent and it sinks in to the background. You kind of want that because that'll make your blend smoother. Just trying to make sure that I've got enough light here. You really can't see it yet, what's going on, and that's fine. You don't really want to be crazy dramatic at first. Got some on the inside here. It's going to be a little tricky to get in between some of these points on the staff. Don't worry if you get a little messy. You can always go over it again. And as you might notice, I actually put kind of a glow on the edge of the staff. So if you get a little red on it, that might be covered up later by a little more red. So I'm going to start as the red starts to appear a little more and more, build up more color towards the bottom. And because that's where the light is going to be coming out. Adding a little more in here. This is the first time I've streamed, so if he's not quite in focus, I'm learning here. I'll just move my light a little bit. Whoop. And it's okay to be a little messy if you work with thin layers. You know, it doesn't really matter because you can always just cover it up with the next layer. I'm just continuing to build. And as I keep applying more and more strokes, the red towards the bottom is getting stronger and stronger. And a little more saturated, which means the color is a bit brighter and more, you know, of that color. Do a little more here. All right, that is, I think, as violet red as it's gonna be. So we're gonna move up to our next color, which is our holly berry. Again, it's seasonal. There are other colors you can use, but when Reaper Miniatures releases this in December, I highly recommend getting it. It's their best red, or at least my favorite. So this is pretty bright. This one has a little more blue in it. This one's more like pure ideal red, and we're gonna thin that out just a little bit more. And we're gonna start applying it towards the bottom. And if you don't think you've done enough, it's fine. You can just scoot your levels of light up and down as you want. But the key is to get the brightest and the most color here towards the bottom. You're really gonna want that to be a little dramatic, and that's what will sell the glassy effect. And what you can do is you can kind of start, you know, painting at the bottom and pull up as you're blending to make sure that the thickest amount of paint is down here. Just rotating around the model. Trying to keep it in focus a little bit here, but you get the gist. It's starting to build. And on camera, it looks kind of like there is a solid line between my violet red and the holly berry. So I'm just going to go over that with just a little more violet red to smoothen that transition out. And there we go. I think we're ready for the next level. So we're going to jump from our holly berry, like the reddest red we can go, to this neon red glow from Reaper. It's a little pinkish reddish orange, and you don't want to go straight pink, which is, you know, red and adding white here. You want it to be tinted a little bit, or else it'll look kind of flowery, feminine. Just giving it a little bit of that yellow in there adds a little bit of edge. So it'll look a little more fluorescent. versus just a boring normal gradient. And also contrasts a little bit with the blues in here. If you go more orange, it just adds a little more depth. So this has a lot of white in it, so it's not gonna blend quite as easily as that red did, because the red was very transparent and anything with white is not. So what you can do is you can just go over a little bit with that red, your holly berry, or whichever red you're using, it doesn't really matter. And you can just rework those blends so you get a smoother transition to the colors you need. Just keep adding a little more down here. Start rotating. And really what you're actually going to want to do is you're probably going to want to put this color at the bottom the most. And it's okay to be a little messy. You can always go back and clean up, which is what's going to be needed. Kind of just adding a little more red there. And this one's a little bit of a hard side to hit because you've got Fawkes' head in the way. But if you're a little messy there, no one's really gonna be looking. Alright. Just a little more here in that crevice. Kind of where the bottom is, where the most light would be coming out. And if you do mess up like I just did there, whoops, he's a little blurry, you can actually wet your brush and just kind of wipe it off before it's dry. It'll just kind of come off. Alright. So, and if you think you've lost your red, you can actually just come in with your holly berry, make just a little bit of a light brush over it to bring out all the reds again, and go back in. Just detail the bottom. Alright. Now, in order to make things look a little bit brighter, because we want this to almost be a little glowy, you're going to want a lot of contrast. So you're going to want the bottom here to be almost white, or white, but just use a little bit. And the brighter the bright, next to the darker the dark, will make it seem a little more glowy. Each color will pop a little more if you put something really light and really dark right next to each other. Okay, so the burgundy wine up top is still pretty dark right here, but I'm actually going to work it up to this nightshade purple, which is almost a black. It's not quite pure black, but you might notice that we're going from something warmer here to more bluish. And so having a little bit of a purple black towards this dome will help kind of complete the warm to cooler transition. And then the darkest dark will be right on top of the warp. And it looks like I may have accidentally gotten like a spot of black or something over here. Let's do a little bit of touch up. All right, just a little more brightness in this crevice. You don't really want it shiny. And then somewhere near the top where you want your light to be coming in, take a little dot of white and just boop. And that looks like glass. Now something else I did on this one, it's kind of made it look like there's a glow. So I'm just going to take my violet red, and I'm going to just lightly brush the inside of these spikes like there's red light coming out from the center. And again, you don't have to have the neatest brush strokes here. You just want to make sure it's angled away from the work you've done on this orb, which some kind of messy corners in there that I'm gonna have to go back and fix later. Man. There we go. Yeah, constantly be watching this thing. I don't really know why it is like that. Okay. A little more on this side. And just lightly glaze, maybe a little bit towards these sides, because light would kind of be coming out and affecting those just a little. All right. Now, if there's a glow on this, which we're trying to do, the light coming from the staff would be brightest towards the bottom, like the light's coming in and out. So we're going to start building up our color. We're going to go back to our holly berry. I'm just going to add a little bit closer in towards the edge of that glass ball. This looks a little like there's a light source. That was really thin, so we're just gonna keep going until it's a little more visible. And then I'm gonna blend a little bit of our neon red glow into our holly berry. Kind of just work that back into the bottom here. Alright, make sure that I didn't lose my glow down here. And if I did, you can always touch back up. Nothing is permanent. You can always go back and fix stuff. Blend a little bit more of that red to tie it back together. Hollyberry. All right. Gotta go back over it with a darker red towards the tip. Up there. Now there's one additional thing you may want to consider. So there's going to be some level of reflection on our glass ball. And we've got lava down here. So what I did on this Fawkes is right towards the middle where the light would probably be coming up and hitting it. I just put a little dab of orange. So I've got this fire orange. And I'm gonna thin that a little bit. Just kind of hit it right here in the center. Very lightly. Gonna wait for that to dry. Do another just very subtle glaze on this side. A little bit of a circle there. And I'm actually gonna leave this one because there's not lava light coming up from his elbow. Back to my first one. Add just a little more of that orange. A little more. And a little more. And orange is one of those colors that's also very thin because it's made of two thin colors, red and yellow. Actually, it depends on the yellow. Some yellows have more white in them, which will add more opacity. There we go. I think I made that a little too bright. I actually kind of wanted more of the light in the center. So I'm actually just going to go back over this edge and dull it out a little. Make it a little more red. So it's like there's a spotlight. Alright, that's a very quick look how to pull off a glass orb. And I think I've got a little more light on this one, so I may actually, I'm just gonna really pump that up on the bottom to try to match it, because I kind of want these two Fawkes to look the same. And again, it's gonna be okay to be a little messy. You can always clean it up later. And the more intense you make it, the more glassy it's gonna look. Band of our hollyberry under the orange there. Actually, I'm going to do some on top too, so we don't lose the red. Just add a little bit of white towards the center bottom. That's a little more glowy. Okay. Now, you notice we have messed up our outside, and that's fine. Just go over it with a slightly darker red again, towards the tips. And you can pull out like clotted red, or even red brick. Need my pokey tool. Okay. Stand there. I've started to put a little bit of sticky tack on the bottom of the bottles so I can just, because I tend to knock stuff over, add a little bit of this clotted red towards the tips. And then I noticed just a little more highlight there in the center. Checking my glow. Getting that a little smoother. It's kind of a process. Kind of going back and forth and checking. That's real bright. Probably don't want too much, but a little bit of white in there isn't bad. And then towards these edges, you can pull it back to a little more red versus the white and the neon glow, just for a little depth. All right. A little more of our violet red here in the middle. And then he's actually got these little winged indents in this staff here. So I'm going to just fill that back in. It doesn't have to be perfect, remember. You can always touch stuff up. I actually have quite shaky hands. There's always a lot of touching stuff up. You can use the shape of the sculpt to guide your brush. Oop. Looks like we have lost, through my touch-ups, our white highlight. It's now kind of a pink. So we're gonna need to put the white back in there. There we go. And then it's just a matter of blending. All right. There you have it. A glassy orb. Hope you like it, Christy. And if anyone else is watching it, hello. Thanks for joining. And the two Fawkes together. Actually, looks like I've got a little more orange going on in here from the reflection, but it's still kind of glassy. Might be able to just match that a little more. This is for the same client, so I don't really want them too different from each other. All right. That's a little closer. And then looked like I had a additional band of red right in here. And they don't have to be exact. And then just for additional reflection, I had put kind of like the orange light that's coming up. Kind of put it here on the bottom, so the staff looks a little more metallic. And then after that, it's just kind of clean up, making sure your blends are smooth, that your colors are where you want them. You could probably also put a little orange in here. Blend some of that with the red as it goes up. All right. Foxy. All right, guys. Thanks for coming. Check you later.